When a frightened homeless girl tugs on Denzel Washington's coat and pleads for help, he sees more than desperation in her eyes. He sees a chance to change a life. What starts as a chance encounter on the bustling streets of Atlanta becomes a mission of compassion as Denzel uncovers a heartbreaking truth and takes bold action. The city of Atlanta shimmered in the morning sun, its streets alive with noise and movement. Cars honked in the distance, people chattered on crowded sidewalks, and the scent of fresh coffee from nearby cafes drifted through the air. Among the hustle and bustle, Denzel Washington stepped out of a grand hotel, his long coat brushing against his legs as a cool breeze swept past him. His black limousine waited at the curb. The driver, Gregory, stood by the open door, looking sharp in his pressed suit. "Good morning, Mr. Washington," he said with a smile. "Your car is ready." Denzel nodded, returning the greeting with his calm, warm demeanor. "Morning, Gregory. Busy day ahead?" Gregory chuckled. "You could say that. Next stop is the photo shoot, then the gala later tonight." Denzel was about to step into the sleek limo when something unexpected happened. A small hand grabbed his leg, clinging tightly. Startled, he looked down and saw a little girl, no older than 10. She was so thin her oversized sweater hung off her frame. Her bald head gleamed under the sunlight, and her wide eyes were filled with fear. She didn't speak, only held on tighter as if letting go would send her tumbling into the chaos around them. Denzel knelt beside her, his deep, reassuring voice soft. "Hey there, sweetheart. What's going on? Are you lost?" The girl didn't answer, her gaze darting toward the street. Denzel followed her line of sight and noticed a man storming toward them. He was burly and red-faced, his apron smeared with grease, and his voice boomed as he got closer. "There she is!" the man yelled. "That little troublemaker!" The girl flinched, shrinking closer to Denzel. He placed a protective arm around her, his calm presence shielding her from the man's anger. "What's going on?" Denzel asked, his tone steady but firm. The man stopped short, clearly taken aback to see Denzel Washington standing in front of him. His anger faltered for a moment before he pointed at the girl. "She's always hanging around my store, scaring off customers. I've told her to stay away." Denzel frowned. "Has she done something wrong? Stolen anything?" The man hesitated, his face reddening further. "Well, no, not exactly. But she's always touching things, walking through the aisles. It's unsettling." Denzel's expression softened as he looked at the girl. She seemed too small, too scared to be any real trouble. "Maybe she's not there to cause harm," he said, his voice thoughtful. "Have you ever asked her why she's there?" The man opened his mouth to argue, but then closed it, clearly unsure how to respond. He muttered something about bad luck and stormed off, embarrassed. The girl tugged on Denzel's coat, pulling his attention back to her. She finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bother you." "You're not bothering me," Denzel said kindly. "But I need to know, are you okay? Why were you at the store?" She hesitated, her thin fingers fidgeting with the hem of her sweater. "I was just looking. It's nice in there, warm, and the snacks." Her voice trailed off, and she glanced down at her worn sneakers. Denzel's heart ached at her words. She wasn't there to cause trouble. She was just a child looking for comfort in a world that had given her so little. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Amara," she said, her voice so soft he had to lean in to hear it. "Well, Amara," he said, standing up and offering her a hand. "How about you ride with me for a bit? We'll figure this out together." Amara hesitated, her eyes flicking back toward the busy street. But something about Denzel's steady presence made her trust him. She nodded and let him guide her into the limo. As they drove, Denzel learned more about her. Amara lived in an old orphanage on the outskirts of the city. She'd been there since she was 5 after her parents passed away. Recently, she'd gotten sick, really sick, and the doctors said she needed expensive treatment that the orphanage couldn't afford. "I try to save money," Amara explained, her voice trembling. "But I don't get much, so I just—" She trailed off, glancing at the floor. Denzel's jaw tightened as he listened. This little girl was carrying a burden far too heavy for her small shoulders. "Don't worry, Amara," he said, his voice filled with quiet determination. "We'll take care of this. You're not alone anymore." The limo pulled up to a crumbling brick building with faded paint and a sagging roof. A small sign near the door read, "Hope's Haven Orphanage." Denzel helped Amara out, holding her hand as they walked inside. The air smelled faintly of old wood and cleaning supplies. Children's laughter echoed faintly down the hall, but the place felt worn, as if it were barely holding together. An older woman with kind eyes and silver hair approached them. She wore a simple cardigan, and her hands were calloused from years of hard work. "Mr. Washington," she said, recognizing him immediately. "I'm Miss Eleanor, the director. Thank you for bringing Amara back. She has a habit of wandering." Denzel shook her hand. "It's no trouble, Miss Eleanor. Amara told me a bit about what's going on. I'd like to help." Miss Eleanor's face softened, and her shoulders sagged with relief. "Oh, bless you, sir. We do our best, but—" Her voice cracked, and she quickly dabbed her eyes. "It's hard. The children need so much, and we're running out of resources." Denzel nodded, his mind already racing with ideas. He knelt beside Amara, who clung to his hand. "You're safe now," he told her. "We're going to get you the care you need, I promise." For the first time, Amara's face brightened with a small, hopeful smile. As Denzel left the orphanage later that day, his resolve hardened. He couldn't just walk away from this. Amara's story wasn't unique. There were so many children like her. But he had the power to make a difference. And he would. The drive back into the heart of Atlanta was a blur for Denzel. His thoughts were consumed with Amara and the crumbling orphanage she called home. The memories of her fragile frame and trembling voice haunted him. But more than that, they fueled his determination. "Gregory," he said, breaking the silence in the car. "Yes, Mr. Washington? I need you to call my assistant. Have her schedule a meeting with my foundation team tomorrow morning. Make sure we have every detail about local organizations and grants for orphanages. Also, find a pediatric oncologist, one of the best. I want them on board immediately." Gregory nodded without hesitation. "Consider it done, sir." Denzel leaned back in his seat, the weight of the situation heavy on his shoulders. For years, he had used his fame and wealth to give back. But this felt different. Personal. Amara wasn't just another face in need. She was a symbol of resilience, a reminder of the quiet strength so many children had to muster just to survive. The next morning, the conference room at his foundation's office buzzed with activity. Denzel entered, commanding the room with his quiet confidence. His team, composed of experts in fundraising, outreach, and charity development, looked up, sensing the urgency in his expression. "Good morning," Denzel began, wasting no time. "Yesterday I met a little girl named Amara. She's sick, living in a rundown orphanage that can barely stay afloat. The people running it are doing their best, but it's not enough. I want to change that." He paused, scanning the room. "We're going to start by getting Amara the medical care she needs. But this isn't just about her. There are hundreds Maybe thousands of kids like her, kids who need help, who deserve a chance to live healthy, happy lives. We're going to make that happen. A hand went up. It was Claire, one of the Foundation's project managers. What's the plan, Mr. Washington? Are we talking about donations? Setting up a new fund? Denzel nodded. All of the above. I want a comprehensive plan to renovate or rebuild Hope's Haven. We'll include a small medical clinic to provide regular care for the children. And I want scholarships for kids who age out of the system. They deserve a future too. Claire's scribbled notes as the team brainstormed. Ideas flew across the table. Partnering with local businesses for supplies, reaching out to architects for pro bono designs, organizing fundraisers to cover long-term costs. Denzel listened intently, offering input where needed. He knew this was just the beginning. By mid-afternoon, Denzel returned to the hospital to check on Amara. She had been moved to a recovery room after undergoing tests and preliminary treatments. As he entered, he found Miss Eleanor sitting by her bed, her hand resting on Amara's. "Mr. Washington," Miss Eleanor greeted him with a tired smile. "Thank you for coming back." "How is she?" Denzel asked, his gaze shifting to Amara, who was asleep, her face pale but peaceful. "The doctors say she's stable for now," Miss Eleanor said softly. "But the treatment she needs, it's expensive. Too expensive for us." "Don't worry about the cost," Denzel assured her. "I've already started making arrangements. She's going to get the best care available." Miss Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know how to thank you. Amara means so much to all of us. She's such a bright, loving child, even with everything she's been through." Denzel sat in the chair beside Amara's bed, his voice gentle but firm. "You've done everything you can, Miss Eleanor. Now it's my turn. This isn't just about money. It's about giving her a future." Amara stirred then, her eyes fluttering open. She blinked a few times before her gaze settled on Denzel. A small smile crept across her face. "You came back," she whispered. "Of course I did," Denzel said, leaning closer. "I told you I would, didn't I?" Amara nodded, her smile growing. "Captain Denzel," she murmured, her voice weak but playful. He chuckled softly. "That's right. And you're my first mate. How are you feeling?" "Tired," she admitted, "but not so scared anymore." "You're brave, Amara," Denzel said, his voice filled with pride. "And you're not alone. We're going to make sure you get through this." Over the next few weeks, Denzel's plan began to take shape. Contractors arrived at Hope's Haven to assess the building, mapping out blueprints for a complete renovation. Donations poured in as word spread, fueled by Denzel's public announcement of the project. Meanwhile, Amara's treatments were well underway. Though the process was long and grueling, she faced it with remarkable strength, bolstered by Denzel's frequent visits. He often brought books and games to keep her spirits up, and every visit ended with a promise. "We're going to beat this together." Miss Eleanor marveled at the transformation taking place, not just at the orphanage, but in the community. Businesses volunteered supplies, neighbors offered their time, and the children at Hope's Haven began to dream bigger dreams. One evening, as Denzel sat with Amara in her hospital room, she looked up at him with wide, curious eyes. "Why are you helping us?" she asked. Denzel smiled, his voice gentle. "Because I can. And because everyone deserves someone to believe in them." Amara thought about this, then nodded as if it made perfect sense. "When I get better," she said with quiet determination, "I want to help people too." "You will," Denzel said, his voice full of certainty. "I know you will." As he left the hospital that night, Denzel felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Amara's fight wasn't over, and the work at Hope's Haven was just beginning. But for the first time, he saw a future filled with hope, a future worth fighting for. As he left the hospital that night, Denzel felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Amara's fight wasn't over, and the work at Hope's Haven was just beginning. But for the first time, he saw a future filled with hope, a future worth fighting for. And speaking of fights worth having, you won't believe what happened when a racist woman told Denzel Washington to go back to Africa. His response not only stunned the crowd, but turned a moment of hate into an unforgettable lesson in dignity and grace. Click the video appearing on the screen right now to see how Denzel handled this shocking encounter. Trust me, you won't want to miss what he said. It left everyone speechless. Please like and subscribe channel for more interesting video. Thank you.